Rome. It wasn't merely one of the great empires in antiquity, it was the definitive political and cultural force that forged the modern world. At its zenith, its vast dominion stretched across immense territories, from the misty shores of Britain all the way to the sun-baked sands of the Middle East, commanding resources and subjects on an unprecedented scale. Yet, its incredible influence did not vanish with its eventual decline. To this day, the Roman spirit persists, woven into our architecture, the core principles of our law, the very structure of our Western languages, and even the simple calendar that orders our everyday lives. Their impact on our systems of government and civil administration, the very idea of a republic, is undeniable. But how, against all odds, did this monumental, world-shaping city actually begin? Stay with us to uncover the truth behind the powerful legends. For most people, the origin of Rome is synonymous with the legendary twins, Romulus and Remus. It is a founding myth, rich with destiny, divine intervention, fratricide, and the unforgettable image of a she-wolf, a tale that has captivated audiences for millennia. According to this widely accepted tradition, the city of Rome was established on April 21st, 753 BCE. The twins were said to be the lineage of Aeneas, the heroic figure of Troy, who escaped the city's destruction and eventually settled in Italy. Their grandfather, King Numitor of Alba Longa, was cruelly deposed by his own brother, Amulius. In an effort to eliminate any future contenders for the throne, Amulius forced Numitor's daughter, Rhea Silvia, to become a Vestal Virgin, a religious vow demanding complete and lifelong chastity. But fate intervened when Mars, the powerful god of war, was captivated by her and fathered the twin boys, Romulus and Remus. Amulius, fearing the royal heirs, immediately ordered the infants to be drowned in the flowing waters of the Tiber River. However, a miracle occurred. The swift current deposited their baskets safely on the shore, and a she-wolf found them, tenderly nursing them back to life. This singular act of a wild animal providing nourishment became the iconic fundamental symbol of Roman identity, illustrating a reliance on primal strength and fortune. Later, a kindly local shepherd discovered them and raised them as his own children. When the brothers came of age, they successfully overthrew Amulius and rightfully reinstated their grandfather, Numitor, to the throne. They then decided to found a new city on the very spot where the she-wolf had saved their lives. But the establishment of Rome was swiftly followed by a tragedy that would forever taint its foundations. Following a quarrel over the city's precise boundaries and the right to name it, Romulus fatally struck his brother. He then assumed the mantle as the first king of the newly established city, which he named Roma in his own honor. By the 3rd century BCE, this dramatic story was so integrated into Roman culture that coins minted around 269 BCE prominently featured the image of the she-wolf nurturing the twins. While the story of the twins was immensely popular, it was merely one version of Rome's beginning. Ancient sources, in fact, preserve at least 60 different tales explaining how the Eternal City was born. For instance, one fascinating account credits a woman named Rome, who fled Troy alongside Aeneas. Finding the eventual location of the city perfect for a new home, she took a drastic measure. She burned their ships to guarantee that no one could ever leave. Another story links Rome's origins to the celebrated Greek hero Odysseus, alleging that the city was founded by Remus, the son of Odysseus and the sorceress Circe. Of course, these legendary stories are not factual history, but they hold immense value for what they reveal about the Roman identity. They show the Romans viewed themselves as a population constantly open to outsiders and diverse cultural currents. This was a striking contrast to the Greeks, particularly the Athenians, who often boasted that their lineage literally sprang from the soil of their homeland, emphasizing purity of origin. The Romans, by comparison, viewed their burgeoning city as a welcoming place where anyone, even immigrants and marginalized figures, could join and become a valuable part of the community. This very openness to external people and influences was, in fact, a fundamental catalyst in Rome's unparalleled ascent to power. This cultural tolerance is why Roman tradition readily acknowledges that a majority of Rome's earliest kings were of foreign birth. If you think that sounds like a recipe for constant conflict, you'll be surprised by what happened next. One of the most famous tales from this period illustrates this foundational idea beautifully: the kidnapping of the Sabine women. Since Romulus had initially founded his city with a community composed only of men, securing wives was absolutely essential for the city's survival and growth. The Romans concocted a clever and aggressive plan. They invited the neighboring Sabines to a grand festival, only to seize the Sabine women in a daring mass abduction. This brazen act triggered a brutal war between the Romans and the Sabines. Yet, the conflict was dramatically halted when the Sabine women themselves intervened. Placing themselves bravely between their Sabine fathers and their Roman husbands, they pleaded eloquently for peace. Their courage united the two disparate communities, and the city grew significantly stronger as a combined, blended populace. Romulus even ruled jointly with the Sabine king, Titus Tatius, for a short period, until Tatius was mysteriously assassinated. Now, let's turn to the hard evidence. While the cherished legends paint Rome's foundation as a dramatic, single event, archaeological evidence presents a far more gradual process, unfolding over centuries. The earliest signs of permanent habitation near the location of the famous Roman Forum can be dated back to around 1000 BCE, mostly in the form of simple cremation graves. Small, scattered villages later began to take root on the Palatine Hill, one of Rome's iconic 7 hills. Here, the remains of simple fortifications and living huts have been dated to the mid-8th century BCE, a time frame that notably aligns with the traditional founding date of 753 BCE. Romans even preserved a primitive hut on the Palatine that they claimed was Romulus's own dwelling, essentially an ancient tourist attraction of its time. However, dating these specific finds remains difficult, suggesting Rome could potentially be even older than the myths suggest. Over the course of time, these various settlements on the surrounding hills slowly merged into one unified town. Rome's strategically critical location on the Tiber River, near vital trade routes like the ancient Salt Road, the Via Salaria, was instrumental to its initial expansion. By the 7th century BCE, the hallmarks of true urbanization were undeniably present. Evidence points to organized, planned streets, the construction of monumental public buildings, and shared civic spaces like the Curia Hostilia, the Senate's first meeting place, and the Comitium, the public area for elections. These were not mere buildings. They were the first great halls of political power, establishing a framework that would govern the Republic for centuries. By the 6th century BCE, Rome had truly matured into a city-state, ready to compete fiercely with its neighbors in the region. Moving into the historical development, Roman tradition attributes much of the city's early civic development to the 7 legendary kings. The first, Romulus, is credited with creating the Roman Senate and establishing the class division between the elite patricians and the common plebeians. His immediate successor, Numa Pompilius, is remembered as the founder of Roman religion. He is also credited with creating the Roman calendar that still forms the framework of the system we use today, a testament to his lasting influence on time itself. Tullus Hostilius is known for expanding Rome's territory through military conquest, while Ancus Marcius is lauded for founding the city's port, Ostia, thus opening Rome to vital sea trade. The final 3 kings, Tarquinius Priscus, the Elder, Servius Tullius, and Tarquinius Superbus, the Arrogant, were of Etruscan ancestry. Tradition credits them with the ambitious construction of many of early Rome's most important public works, dramatically accelerating the city's transformation. However, modern historians generally believe that these 7 monarchs, especially the first 4, are not accurate historical figures but rather represent archetypes, each embodying a different stage in Rome's complex evolution. It is simply implausible that only 7 men would rule over a span of 250 years. Instead, these figures served as a powerful narrative device for the Romans to explain the foundation of their city's cherished institutions. Their names often carried symbolic weight. For example, Numa relates to the word numen, a divine spirit, a fitting name for the king remembered for his religious reforms. The last 3 kings, the Etruscans, are much closer to verified reality. Archaeology substantiates key accomplishments, such as the construction of the massive Temple of Jupiter, Optimus Maximus, in the 6th century BCE. The tradition holds that Servius Tullius organized Rome's first comprehensive census, dividing all citizens into 5 classes based on their private wealth. These classes were further divided into centuries, military units that made the army more loyal to the burgeoning state than to any individual local elites, as soldiers were drawn from across the city. This civic division had major political consequences. The wealthiest class alone controlled 80 out of the 193 centuries, giving the richest citizens the dominant influence in the new assembly called the Centuriate Assembly, where each century had one single vote. Historians generally agree these reforms were not the work of one person, but a slow, decades-long process that Romans later simplified to give them greater historical importance. The fact that the last kings had Etruscan roots compels us to ask a critical question that shapes our understanding of early Roman society. Did the powerful Etruscans conquer Rome? The Etruscans, who dominated the land between the Arno and Tiber rivers, were the most advanced civilization in Italy at that time, and their culture was widely influential. Roman accounts do not mention a direct conquest, but some later historians speculated that the proud Romans were simply unwilling to admit they had ever been ruled by a foreign power. Crucially, ancient Italy was a vibrant tapestry of different cultures, Italians, Latins, and Greeks, who deeply influenced one another. It is nearly impossible to definitively determine what Rome borrowed from whom, as people moved freely between cities, disseminating customs and new ideas. The very character of the city was defined by this intermingling. For example, Tarquin the Elder recognized that the local elites in his Etruscan hometown would never fully accept him because his father was Greek. This is precisely why he traveled to Rome, a city famously more open to foreigners, to try his luck and find opportunity. He did not gain the throne because the Etruscans conquered the city. Quite the opposite. The very presence of existing Etruscan influence in Rome provided him with the opportunity he needed to rise. By the end of the 6th century BCE, Rome had fundamentally changed. It had evolved from a loose cluster of small villages into a consolidated city-state, boasting an estimated 35,000 inhabitants. This made it the largest town in Latium, capable of rivaling even many prominent Etruscan cities. Crucially, while the groundwork for future supremacy was established during the era of the kings, Rome was not yet a major regional power like the large Greek colonies in Italy. The city's true rise, its path to dominating the Mediterranean world, would only be fully realized under a new and dynamic political system, the Roman Republic. The journey ahead is filled with brutal wars, shifting alliances, and monumental political innovation, so you won't want to miss what comes next. If you found this animated journey into Rome's mythical and factual origins captivating and want to follow its epic transformation from a tiny town into a global empire, please show your support by liking this video and hitting that subscribe button. This has been the first of our planned 12-episode series on the rise and eventual fall of the Roman Empire, and your feedback in the comments truly helps guide us as we continue. We aim to make history engaging and entertaining through careful animated reconstruction, ensuring every fact is based on respected historical sources, with references available on screen. Join us for the next episode where we delve into the birth and descent of the formidable Roman Republic.